The United States, as the world knows, will never start a war. We do not want a war. We do not now expect a war. This generation of Americans has already had enough, more than enough, of war and hate and oppression.
I was in the Army. I was drafted. I was a E4 specialist, fourth class. I went to basic training at Fort Dix, New Jersey. It lasted about 8 weeks. At that time, boot camp was a process of breaking everyone down as a civilian and then bringing them back up as a military person. We went through all sorts of courses, rifle range, hand-to-hand combat, dreaded gas chamber, and then the history of the Army and why we were there. I was a crew chief on an Army aircraft called the Caribou. Caribou is what is referred to as a STOL aircraft, short takeoff and landing. It was our responsibility to resupply troops out in the field. Basically, special forces camps, small little outposts that big planes couldn't get into.
The Caribou was used to move people and material into forward areas, where short, unprepared strips were normal. The Caribou could accommodate up to 32 passengers, 26 fully equipped paratroops, 20 patients, or an 8,740-pound cargo load. Most of the destination airstrips of the Caribou in the 1971 time period were along the borders of South Vietnam and were firing bases or special force outposts.
And then in '68, of course, February '68, you had the Tet Offensive. That was when we were supposed to be at peace. We had made a deal with the North Vietnamese and Viet Cong that we would lay down our arms for a period of time. Well, we were fooled.
On January 31st, 1968, some 70,000 North Vietnam and Viet Cong forces launched the Tet Offense, a coordinated series of fierce attacks on more than 100 cities and towns in South Vietnam. Though U.S. and South Vietnamese forces managed to hold off the communist attacks, new coverage of the offense shocked and dismayed the American public and further eroded support for the war effort.
One of the groups of guys on a day off to take pictures, and that day we were going in to drop off some ammunition at a special forces outpost, and when we radioed in to see if the airfield was secure, they come back and said yes. When we started going down, we got to we were about maybe 100 feet off the deck, and we started taking fire. And that was when I was wounded. I got hit with some shrapnel from the airplane, and the crew chief was wounded, and we ended up aborting our landing and taking off and then going back down up to Saigon.
1975 marked the end of the Vietnam War. After the South Vietnamese army folded under NVA pressure, the fall of Saigon was inevitable. The U.S. started evacuating its citizens, but not to alarm the South Vietnamese. They left under a number of pretexts. On April 30th, 1975, Saigon fell and the Vietnam War was over.
In February of '64, I worked in an architect's office as a draftsman. And after I got out of the service, I went back to work in the same office for a short period of time until I decided to